Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Lauren here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Henry, and he's selling his Amazon KDP business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Welcome to the show, Henry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Really happy to be here. Thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, great. I'm really looking forward to talking more about your business and hearing more from you. But before we get started, let's go over a brief summary of the business. This is an Amazon KDP business created in November 2015 in the books niche. The average monthly revenue for this business is $6,151, and it makes an average of $6,127 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 57566 to learn more about the business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. The assets included in the sale are an Amazon KDP account, an Authors Republic account, a Findway Voices account, an Ingram Spark account, an ACX account, a G Suite account, and approximately 75 audiobooks and ebooks. So now that we know more about the business, let's hear about the seller. Henry, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Sure. So this current business is actually the first one I started with back in 2015. So long story short, I never really saw myself going into business. I was actually a dancer before this. Through an injury, that's when I realized, okay, I probably need to figure something else out. That's where I found, books. I can make a living through books, and ultimately finding that through Amazon, that made it a lot easier for me to make a profit off of that, and ultimately, provide value in the marketplace and to people through books, right? And just going through that process initially, it wasn't like a lot of money to start out because I didn't really understand everything when I first saw. Probably everyone can probably agree with that. And ultimately, the first year I saw that this was very doable if I put all my energy into it. So I kind of left my other job in 2015 and just kind of went full in with books. And it just started with just a learning process of just the joy of understanding something that's completely new to me and just building on top of that. And from there on, I kind of saw that this could potentially scale, and just adding more books to the catalog and some different niches within it. I mean, I don't even know where to start. There's like a lot of different categories I was looking into. I had a lot of interest in a lot of different things. I read a lot. Going into business, that made me read a lot more. So I really liked doing it. In the very beginning was definitely, I would say that was the funnest part going into it. But that's kind of how it all started. Not sure if I answered all that. Your question, let me know if I can elaborate more or whatnot.
No, that's great. It definitely answers my question. And that's a great background story as well. There's a lot of online business models to choose from, content sites to Amazon FBA. Was it your love of books that drove you to KDP?
I wouldn't say, I think love is a strong word. I think I had a really kind of an interest in it. And I already liked reading books to start with. And the thing that really, I'll be completely honest, it was just the factor that it was completely passive. So I was doing so much research. I was like, oh, all of this is complete passive income. I just need to write something that makes sense and I like to write about, and it's passive income. And because I like books and, I wouldn't mind writing and spending time into it in the beginning, that made sense in the beginning, right? But then after that, that's when I grew to like it a lot more after doing it. I would say that's kind of how I would describe that. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. It sounds like you certainly have a passion for this business. What is the reason that you're selling it now?
Now it's 6 years or so or more, probably 7, I think. And ultimately, it's a partnership that I did with my friend. And I'm selling it because we both moved on with different things. in the past couple of years. Like it got to a point where, everything was working out great. It's complete passive. Like a lot of the books I didn't even, it still surprises me today on that it's still getting revenue today. It just shows the power that Amazon had through its members. And ultimately, I wanted to do other things because after writing books and having that systemized and doing it over and over again, I'm sure everyone can agree that, if you eat the same food every single day, you're going to get tired and bored of it. And that's kind of what happened. I felt like I didn't have a challenge and I wanted to move on to different things. And that was the same for my business partner. And we both kind of like did other things while this was still running. And we just kind of like, well, if no one's going to put effort into it, then why don't we just have someone else do it? It's a working model. And I'm sure someone else can take a better jab at it and grow it further with this business model that currently exists. So that's kind of why we just decided we're not working on it anymore anyways. And it's just been just kind of generating income for now. If someone wants to put in the time, they can do a lot more with it, or also just be sitting duck for the next couple of years or more.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned that this was your first sort of foray into online business. Was there any lessons that you learned or success stories that you would take from this business and apply to any future businesses that you work on?
Yes, absolutely. If anyone has early success very early on, just remember to keep your ego in check. Definitely, for me in the beginning, definitely did not keep my ego in check. Thought I was basically, I could do everything. I basically just unstoppable, like just because I had like the first few books that I made were just like really good and it was generating a lot of income. I thought like I could make anything work. When I started, I was a lot younger, so it just felt like I think that's for me was one of the biggest lessons. If I could just say one, because if I did keep my ego in check, I think a lot of things, even when exploring other ventures and other opportunities, you would carry that with you, right? But because I didn't, I got a little bit too arrogant in my other ventures that didn't work out afterwards. But, all is good now. Those were many years that passed. But that's kind of what I would say for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. You hinted at some of the things that didn't go very well. What were some of the hiccups that you experienced along the way with this business?
So this current business, I think the first thing that went wrong was actually we started a new niche and we didn't do proper research in it. Because the first three niches that we decided to write about, we really liked it and we had an interest in it. But then afterwards, on the fourth niche that we're working on to kind of expand out, we're like, okay, well, we are just too good at this. I think we can make anything work. But, we didn't say that. It just unconsciously, we looked into something, but barely looked into it and just decided to throw, some money into it to create a catalog off of that. And it's just a complete disaster. It was just money wasted. And I think that's kind of like where things went wrong right early on, even though we had early success. But, learning from that, we learned to, okay, we're not going to do that again. And that's definitely helped us carry on to the other things that we're going to do.
Great. So, in terms of traffic and marketing, do you do any marketing or do you rely on Amazon to bring customers to you?
So, Amazon and the other platforms, right? Authors Republic, Final Wave Voices, Ingram Spark. Most of right now is through audiobooks. And the strategy that we have in place, we don't rely on, direct response marketing or ads or anything like that. It's just literally through the platforms marketing. And I think that's the way we would like it. I think anyone would like that where they don't have any marketing costs. So it's just super, super lean and it's just kind of like a cash cow. Yeah, to answer your question, ultimately, no.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's the benefit of selling on those platforms is that they bring the audience to you, which is always good. So, Henry, if you were to keep this business, what are some of the ways that you would potentially grow it further?
First, make sure that the research process is in place. Like that needs to be always spent more time in the beginning, even the first 2 weeks too. I mean, if you really want to like very diligent in it, then a whole month, but I don't recommend that. 2 weeks. Always do 2 weeks of research and looking out for what other niches there is, or B, current categories that already has success, and you can always add in more catalogs to that, more books. That's definitely the easiest way to go at it. But if you want to look for definitely a bigger expansion, there's a lot of different niches that are always coming out. I mean, because ultimately with books on Amazon, it's driven by what's going on in the world. right? You can always create some kind of books that relates to that on the market. So there's a scientific approach to that, or you can literally just rely on what's already been successful and expand on that. To scale to that, what's already working, there's always a limit. It's like, how far can you scale, right? So I would definitely hit those two approaches for sure.
Yeah, those are fantastic points. You mentioned you have a business partner. What are your roles in this business? How many hours per week do you each work on the business? And what sort of tasks take up your time?
So currently right now we spend 0 hours on it, to be honest. But in the beginning, we spent a good amount of time. When we first started, we had no idea how to start a business, and we didn't know who was responsible for what. I mean, to the extent of like, we were so distrustful that we didn't hire anyone, that we just like, okay, we'll just be both CEOs. And we both carried out like, going on and hiring contractors to help us edit certain things. Because then that was like, on Upwork, you can just have that contract and it's nice and safe. For example, you have the research process that we both did. And we had, after the research process, executing it out, which is essentially hiring out. Maybe you need a ghostwriter. Maybe you need someone who outlines it if you don't want to do that. And then you need an editor. And then from then you need someone to create the audio for it, right? The narrator. And then you do the final checking, and then the uploading part, and then the design for the cover. So that process is all just done from each of us. We just like, okay, this is the category and niche that makes sense because we have an interest in it, A. And B, we think that this is something that has demand and we can offer value in. And we just basically split up the work for, okay, I'm going to do 5 this week. You're going to do 5 this week. And yeah, that's kind of how we split it up. It's not a complex business. It's relatively simple from other business models because you're relying on Amazon and these other platforms such as Ingram Spark and Authors Republic to do the mass distribution for you where they take a fee, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it sounds like even in your busiest period, it was still quite a passive business and allowed you to work on other things.
Exactly. Because the hardest part was the beginning, right? Getting something to work. And then after that, scaling it to a point where, okay, there is money coming in every month. And then, if you want to just stop and not do any more and just see how it goes, you absolutely can, which we did. And it's just been bringing in money every month. And right now we have not touched the business for like a really long time. Sometimes we have the emails that we check and see, maybe because it's not like we're FBA, like what do you call it? Like they have like an Amazon review program and stuff. With KDP, they don't have that, right? You can choose to leave your email on like the author's program where people can contact you and stuff. We don't even have that right now, right? So just constantly right now, just minimal, we can just leave it alone and things just ride off on its own.
Yeah, and I think that's a very powerful thing to have. So, Henry, for someone who's not familiar with the Amazon KDP business model, what skills or requirements would you say are needed to run this business successfully?
I would say, this sounds so cliche, the number one thing is definitely a strong mindset, right? Let's just say that someone's not entrepreneurial at all and does have no business experience, but the fact that they are willing to do the work and push through to problem solve and figure it out on their end. Because the research part is going to be the biggest chunk of the time, in my opinion, from all the years that I've done it, because that is the part where you need to really dig in and look at things and look at data and stuff, right? Why data is because you need to compare and look at how the markets, if there's demand in it, right? Which we have an SOP on that for. And someone who is ultimately interested in the space will really help, right? Because then if you're not interested at all and you don't care about books, you don't even read books, that mindset alone will probably not guarantee you any success through that. I think the thing that comes second is design, but luckily, I mean, you have these awesome websites that you can just hire really awesome graphic designers for really inexpensively. And that's what they're good at and that's what they're experts at. So that design part is already taken care of for you. You don't even need to know how to write. You just need to be able to research. So again, to answer that question, going back full circle, that mindset of, okay, I like this and I can do this. I can make this work. And I'm actually interested in the books right now that I want to look at. And I want to see if people want to read it, right? Having that in the beginning is very, very important. If you're asking, I guess, for someone to just do it on their own, right? That's what I'll say. But if you're saying someone who wants to just kind of take our model, then ultimately following that procedure. And I think that's pretty doable. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I definitely agree with all that you said there. On the flip side of the coin, what would you say are the biggest risks with this business that buyers should be aware of?
Absolutely. So the biggest risk is the beginning, the initial cash flow. So although it's a cash flow business now, Amazon KDP, I think FBA gives you it every week or 2 weeks that you can get your revenue basically, right? With KDP, when you publish a book, the first paycheck out of that book will not come until 60 days. That's going to scare some people, but it's kind of like, you could think about stocks dividends, right? But the beauty of that is it comes in every month though. So the initial process, you're always at a loss. I'm sure FBA, that's nothing new for them. For people who are in FBA, you're just going to be at a loss probably for the first 3 months, right? Because you don't get your first paycheck until 60 months for one book. So if I published 5 books now in the month of January, literally right now, I'm not going to get a paycheck for that until the end of March, right? But then after that, you just get it every month because that's the cycle of that. I think that is the biggest risk because, you have to have that money up front. That's why going back to, the mindset stuff, like you do want to have some kind of interest in it, creating books to do that. Or, if you're just looking to just create some cash flow, then you can hire someone that is interested in books and do that for you and follow the procedures. But someone who's definitely on the operational end needs to have some interest for sure. And ultimately, those are the risks I would say.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I think there's a lot of people who aren't aware of that 60-day waiting period. So that's a great thing to bring up. How much support are you willing to offer buyers to help ease the transition?
I am more than happy to, weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, whatever they prefer. I'm happy to get on a call to definitely make sure, because I know the in and out, and maybe if someone doesn't know anything about it, I'm more than happy to get on calls and make sure that they understand the process.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's going to be very reassuring to buyers. And Henry, would you be open to negotiating something like an earnout?
Absolutely. Sure. Definitely open to it.
Wonderful. And would you be willing to commit to a non-compete agreement?
Yes, sure.
Okay, great. This was your first online business. Why would you recommend Amazon KDP? Why do you think it's a great business model for those who are interested in starting out in the world of online business?
I think it's something that's simple and relatively easy to do if someone's like not very fluent in the online business world. That's number one. And number two, it really can become a very great cash flow business. And you don't have to be super hands-on because that's like the gateway drug, I would call it, to building business, right? Because you get a taste of it and you understand it. And from that, you can decide if you want to get addicted or not, right? Like it's like, oh, I really like this and I kind of want to do more. Look, I'm biased because for me, this is what I started with. And I feel like everyone should start doing this first just because it's cash flow. It's quite easy to do. And I think it's super fun. Books are evergreen. I don't think they're ever going to go away. Whatever type of form of reading, right? Like people always want to consume information. So I think it's just something that's like A, evergreen, B is fun, and C is just simple to start with. So yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Those are all great points. And do you have any advice that you would give to our listeners that you wish you knew when you first started out?
The top of my head, I would say I wish I had someone to help guide me a little bit better on the space. I just did everything, just learning everything on my own, and I could have probably saved a lot more time. I think people always say you should have a mentor or someone who's gonna like show you like how to get from A to Z at least for like that guidance part. I wish I kind of like took that advice for like right in the beginning and just had someone with more experience to show me that. I think in the beginning process, that's very easy. But for me, I'm okay with getting on calls and making sure if someone wants to really take on this model and then scale it, I'm completely okay with that just because I understand that in the beginning process, it is a struggle if it's new. But, once you get the hang of it, it's super, super simple. But, I could have saved so much time if I just did that from the start. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So that leads us into the last question of the interview, and perhaps the most important one, which is if you had to put yourself into the shoes of a buyer, why do you think your business is a business worth buying?
That's a great question. I think it's really, really worth buying is because ultimately it's passive and it has a lot of years of track record of just every month, there's always something. And if someone's looking to scale like anything, they want to have a track record of something that's been working for a while. And I know that our business offers that for sure and shows that and conveys that track record. I think that's ultimately, yeah.
Yep, certainly. It sounds like your business has a lot of potential in a lot of different areas, which is great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners that I might have missed?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time, Henry. It's been really great talking to you and learning more about your business.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much. Likewise.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 57566. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. Once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.